Most students don't bomb the LSAT because they're unprepared, they bomb it because they make avoidable, dumb mistakes. And I say that with love. You studied, you practiced, you read all the textbooks, but then the test starts and suddenly a glitch makes you panic. The timer feels like it's judging you, and the proctor breathes kind of weirdly and you spiral. Every single one of these has happened to smart students I've worked with in the past. Not because they weren't ready, but because they weren't ready for this. So today, let's walk through the 7 LSAT test day mistakes that quietly destroy scores, even for top scorers, and we'll talk about exactly how to avoid them. You're going to leave today with a checklist that will protect your score from sabotage. Let's go. The first big mistake is practicing on the wrong platform. And this is something nobody wants to hear, but if you've been studying for months, using a third-party platform instead of the official LSAT platform, you're wasting your time. I don't care how pretty the dashboard looks. I don't care if it color codes your mistakes in 17 shades of red. And I definitely don't care if it lets you review questions with a soothing British narrator voice. Here's the truth. The only interface that matters is LawHub. That is LSAC's official testing platform. It's the one you're going to use on test day through Prometric. And it's kind of a mess. The font is clunky, the highlighting tool is weird, and the layout feels like a web app from 2009. But it's what we're all stuck with. And every single time I hear from a student who struggled on test day, they all say the same thing. The buttons didn't work like I expected. The timer looked different and threw me off, and I couldn't find the underlining tool that I practiced with. None of those things have anything to do with content knowledge. It's all interface friction, and that is completely avoidable. And with our students, we always say, your practice environment should match test day exactly. Same interface, same tools, same everything. Because here's what happens if you don't. You sit down on test day and the questions pop up. And instead of thinking about the stimulus, your brain's like, wait, how do I highlight again? Or this font is so annoying. Or where's that answer choice tracker thing I'm used to? And that's mental energy you cannot afford to waste. You need every ounce of your attention on solving the questions, not on figuring out how the interface works. So here's what you want to do. Do all your full-length timed practice tests on LawHub, no exceptions. Get used to the font, the tools, and the layout. Learn how the highlighter works. Learn how to flag questions. And learn how the timer appears and how to hide it. Learn how the whole thing feels. By the time test day rolls around, you want your brain to go, oh, this again? Cool, I know exactly what to do. Not, WTF is this screen? You're already solving some of the hardest logic questions on any standardized test. So don't let a janky interface steal your focus. Test like you play and play like you test. And that means practicing with the real thing, not the pretty fake one. Now, the second big mistake is letting the proctor knock you off balance. Proctors are like wildcards. Sometimes you get a total pro who is chill, respectful, and helpful. Other times, it's like someone gave your least favorite middle school teacher a walkie-talkie and too much authority. So let's be real. These people can and do interrupt students mid-test. It could be a pop-up chat box while you're mid-sentence in reading comp. It could be a sudden proctor switch halfway through your section, or a random, hey, can you move your camera a little? Whispered directly into your soul. And you're expected to just kind of roll with it. No, you are allowed to set boundaries. So here's what you want to do. Right before the test starts, tell your proctor clearly and politely, if you need to speak with me during the test, could you please pause the timer first? That's it. And you are not being rude here, you are setting expectations. And if they say no or they just ignore you, that's fine, but at least you've made it clear that you're focused, you know your rights, and you're not some nervous kid just trying to wing it. And if a new proctor shows up halfway through the test, say it again. Now let's deal with the real problem. What happens if they interrupt anyway? Because they might. If it happens, don't argue, don't spiral, take one deep breath, literally just one breath, and regain your place. Glance at the question and get back into it. One interruption does not have to derail your whole section unless you let it. So we train our students for this like it's part of the test. Because it kind of is. Interruptions are normal, and focus is a skill, so treat it like one. You want your mindset to be, okay, that was annoying, but I'm back, let's go. Because test day is about staying locked in no matter what shows up. Now, mistake number 3, treating one question like it's the final boss in a video game. You ever see someone get stuck on one question and refuse to let it go? They treat it like it's a personal insult. They say, I will solve this, or just one more reread. Okay, now I've spent 3 minutes, might as well finish it. No, stop. This is not a Marvel movie. You are not fighting Thanos. You are answering one of 76 or so questions. And every LSAT question is worth the same. There is no magic gold star for solving the hardest one. No extra credit, no one's throwing you a parade. So there's no reason to burn 5 minutes on it like it's going to unlock a new secret law school scholarship. Here's what we tell our students. If a question starts feeling like a black hole, you're already too deep. Flag it, move on, and come back later. Because here's what happens when you don't. You sink 4 to 5 minutes into one question, and now you're rushing through the test. You lose your pacing, you make careless mistakes, and you finish the section sweating. I had one student who was a total rock star. She was aiming for a 172 and beyond. But on test day, she hit one reading comp question that didn't make sense. She kept reading it, rereading it, and obsessing. By the time she moved on, she had just minutes left and had to guess on 5 questions. So that one moment of stubbornness cost her the score she had spent months preparing for. She had to retake. And guess what? Next time she used a simple rule. If I'm not making progress in 90 seconds, I move on. And she went up 5 points. And of course, this is not a guarantee that you will experience similar results. Your mileage may vary, but I share this story to show you what's possible when you're willing to let go and move on. So here is your takeaway. If a question makes you feel like you're drowning, skip it. Come back later with a fresh perspective, and you'll often see the answer instantly because your brain isn't panicking anymore. The LSAT is not about winning every question. It's about managing your time and attention like a pro. So treat each question like it's on a clock, because it kinda is. And if it won't crack under pressure, come back later and finish it off clean. No heroics, no drama, just smart execution. Mistake number 4, obsessing over the countdown timer. You know that scene in every action movie where someone has to defuse a bomb with 12 seconds left on the clock? That's how a lot of students treat the LSAT timer. They stare at it, they glance up every 20 seconds, and they feel their heartbeat sync with the digits. And then they wonder why they're anxious and they can't focus. Let me break it to you gently. The timer is not your friend. It's a distraction wearing a watch. Yes, you need to manage your time. But no, that does not mean watching the seconds melt away like it's a nuclear countdown. So click the timer and hide it. Make it go away. Seriously. The Law Hub interface lets you collapse it. It'll automatically pop back up at the 5-minute warning. That's all you need. So we train our students to develop internal pacing instead. Not because it's fancy, but because it works. Here's what that internal pacing can look like. It means you know roughly how long each question type takes you. It means you check your progress by question number, not by panic clock. And you feel the rhythm of the section instead of reacting to a blinking number. For example, if you're halfway through logical reasoning and you're still on question number 12, that's a signal. No anxiety, no flailing, just awareness. That means, cool, I've got to pick up the pace a little bit. Compare that to someone who keeps glancing up at the timer every 30 seconds. They're basically running a mental side process the entire time. It's like trying to solve logic puzzles while someone's poking you in the ribs every minute. So what do you do instead? Practice hiding the timer during full-length practice tests. Know your checkpoints, like, for example, I'm usually halfway done at 17 minutes. Then you use those benchmarks to self-correct without any drama. Because here's the truth. If you've done the prep, your pacing is already solid. You just need to trust it. And if you haven't, watching the timer isn't going to save you anyway. It'll just make your palms sweaty and your brain fuzzy. So collapse the timer, trust your training, and get back to solving the questions. Now, mistake number 5, letting one bad section ruin the rest of your test. So let's say you finish a section and it feels awful. Maybe you misread a logical reasoning argument. Maybe you spaced out during reading comp. Whatever it was, it's over and the section is done. Yet your brain, for some reason, won't let it go. You spend the break spiraling. You're thinking to yourself, I blew it. What if that cost me everything? And should I cancel my score? And while you're doing all those mental gymnastics, guess what's happening? You are sabotaging your next section. One bad section is not the problem. The real problem is dragging that emotional baggage into the next one. This is what I call LSAT trauma looping, reliving a mistake that no longer matters. Because here's the truth. You can't go back. You don't know how bad it actually was, and you still have more points to earn right now. So we train our students to mentally reset after every section. Not because it sounds nice, but because it's the only way to stay in the game. Think of elite athletes. They miss a shot and they move on. They don't stare into the distance thinking, I wonder what the coach thinks of me. So you want to build that same skill. Here's how. Before the test, practice deep breathing. Just take 3 slow breaths between sections. You can also try visualizing a giant mental reset button after every section. And remind yourself that section is over. My job is to dominate the next one. Then after the test, don't rush to review the bad section. Let it sit. Let your emotions cool. Then analyze later when you're calm and logical again. Think of each section as a self-contained game. Section 1, that game is over. Section 2, new game, new mindset. Goldfish memory, clean slate. You owe that to yourself. Because the LSAT isn't just about how smart you are. It's about how fast you can recover when something goes wrong. And something will go wrong. It always does. The winners aren't the ones who avoid mistakes. They're the ones who bounce back fast. Mistake number 6, believing everything rides on this one test. Let's talk about pressure. You sit down on test day thinking, this is it. Everything depends on this. If I screw this up, I won't get into law school, I won't get a scholarship, and on and on and on. Whoa, chill. That mindset doesn't make you perform better. It turns your brain into a stress burrito. You are not diffusing a nuclear bomb here. You are taking a standardized test that happens 8 times a year and that law schools allow you to retake. And I'll say that again. Law schools only care about your highest LSAT score. Not your average, not your first attempt, just the highest one. That means if something goes wrong, you can retake it and it's completely normal. Some of the best students I've worked with took the LSAT 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They didn't fail. They simply got smarter with each round and walked away with higher scores and bigger scholarships. Think about that. The LSAT is one of the only parts of the law school application process where you can get a do-over and it actually helps you. So why put yourself in an all or nothing mindset? When we work with students, we teach them to approach test day like this. They say to themselves, I am well prepared, I expect to do well, but if something weird happens, no big deal. I'll regroup and I'll take it again. And that mindset alone removes about half the pressure. And when the pressure drops, you read more clearly. You stay calmer under time pressure. You recover faster from mistakes. And you don't spiral when a question throws you off. In other words, you actually perform better. So here's the shift. Instead of, I have to get it right today or I'm screwed, think to yourself, this is one of several shots. Let's see how it goes. It's still important, but it's not everything. And when you stop gripping the test like it's life or death, you finally give yourself room to perform at your best. Mistake number 7, changing your strategy on test day. You ever see someone try something completely new on game day, like switching their basketball shooting form in the middle of the playoffs, or deciding to run a marathon in brand new shoes because they felt lucky? Of course not, because it would be a total disaster every single time. And yet LSAT students do this constantly. They might say to themselves, I usually drink coffee, but maybe I'll skip it today for the first time ever just to be safe. Or what if I skip around more this time just to kind of feel it out? This is not the moment for experimentation. Test day is not your sandbox, it's your performance. So we hammer this into our students before every single official test. Test day is a place to execute what you already practiced. That is it. There is zero benefit to last-minute innovation. You've spent weeks, maybe months, developing your system, how you approach each question type, what to do when you get stuck, how you pace yourself, what your break routine looks like, what snacks you eat, even what shirt you wear. All of that matters. Why? Because it removes decision fatigue. That's why I bought a dozen of these gray t-shirts and I wear them every single day. The best test takers walk into the LSAT knowing exactly what's going to happen. So there are no surprises, no mid-test brainstorms, no caffeine roulette. They've done dry runs. They've dialed in their setup. By the time they sit down on test day, they're on autopilot. And you want to be that person. So here's what to do right now before your test. Lock in all your routines, your morning routine, your break routine, your food, clothing, and so on. You also want to rehearse your section strategies until they feel boring. And boring is a good sign, by the way. You want to do at least one full-length practice test that simulates every part of your test day. And you want to stick to what worked during your prep, no matter what your nerves tell you on test day. And if your brain whispers, but what if we try something totally different today? You answer, cool idea, write it down, we'll test it if we decide to retake, but not today. Test day is about execution, not innovation. Stick to the plan. Now here's a bonus tip for you. Control F does not work anymore. There was a time, a couple of years back, when you could use it on the LSAT. It was nice for reading comp because if you need to find that one little detail, boom, type it in, found. But LSAC took away that functionality and they replaced it with their own slow, clunky, awkward search bar. And as a result, you're stuck staring at the screen for a couple extra seconds. So here's what you do instead. You become your own search engine. When we help students, especially on reading comp, we train them to map the passage in their heads. Not to memorize it word for word, but to know where the good stuff is. So that starts with learning the structure, not the trivia. You're not highlighting random quotes here, but instead you're thinking paragraph by paragraph. This one's the setup, this one's the core argument, this is the counterpoint, and this is the conclusion. That way, when a question asks about a specific detail, you already know which part to jump to. And so yes, LSAC search tool still exists technically, but it's slow and unreliable. If you want to see how it works, try using Inside Law Hub. Don't use it for the first time on test day. And ideally, the best students don't need Control F because they've trained themselves to work without it already. They can scan a passage and instantly know the details in paragraph 2 around the third sentence. This is just a function of putting in the reps, and you can start now. Train your brain like the best search tool you've got. And that's it.